The early sunlight stretched shadows across my front lawn as Meredith Sinclair, the formidable president of the Willowbrook Estates HOA, stood handcuffed in my driveway. Her once pristine blonde hair was now a tangled mess, the result of her struggle against the U.S. Marshals. The voice that usually carried authority during neighborhood meetings cracked under pressure, as she yelled about her rights and insisted on speaking with the police chief. The officers paid no attention to her demands, calmly guiding her toward the waiting cruiser. Meanwhile, inside my home, federal technicians methodically photographed and cataloged evidence. Across the street, my neighbor Robertson stepped outside, clutching his coffee mug and wearing a stunned expression. He cautiously approached one of the marshals and asked what was going on. The response was delivered plainly, but with a gravity that made Robert's jaw drop. "She broke into a federal judge's house. Let me explain how we ended up here. My name is Marcus Blackwood. I've been a federal judge in the Eastern District for over a decade. After handling numerous high-profile cases involving organized crime, and enduring the resulting threats against my family, I relocated to Willowbrook Estates, a quiet, gated neighborhood in the Riverside suburbs. The plan was simple: find peace, blend in, and live quietly. I introduced myself to neighbors only as Marcus, a government employee, and kept to myself. I didn't attend any HOA meetings or events and steered clear of community drama. That peace shattered 3 months ago when I received a formal notice from the HOA. The letter, printed on needlessly fancy paper, informed me that my blinds were a shade too off-white, eggshell, to be exact, and therefore not compliant with some obscure rule in their bylaws. It was absurd. The blinds came with the house when I bought it, fully approved by the previous owner. I laughed it off and ignored the notice, but they didn't stop. The following week, they complained about my mailbox, insisting it needed repainting, even though it looked exactly like everyone else's. Then came a warning about the American flag I'd placed near my door, which apparently exceeded their size limits by 2 inches. A week later, I was told to remove the bird bath in my backyard because it might attract wildlife. Each letter became more aggressive in tone, evolving from gentle reminders to stern warnings to full-on threats of fines. But I've faced real danger before, people who meant serious harm. Meredith's passive-aggressive memos didn't even register. My focus remained on a complex RICO case I was presiding over. I didn't have time for neighborhood politics. Unfortunately, my silence only seemed to provoke her. Meredith began leaving voicemails, her tone syrupy but with a clear edge, reminding me I had responsibilities as a homeowner. One evening she even appeared at my doorstep, clipboard in hand, insisting we discuss my violations. I calmly informed her that unless she had legal documentation, there was nothing to discuss, and I shut the door. After that, things escalated. She started spreading rumors, hinting at HOA meetings that I was hiding something. She suggested that anyone who refused inspections could be engaging in criminal activity. She even proposed quarterly inspections of all homes, something the board narrowly voted down. But Meredith wasn't deterred. On a Thursday, while I was presiding over a fraud trial 50 miles away, she made her move. Using an old contractor access code she'd somehow obtained, she slipped through the gate and entered my home through the back. What she didn't realize was that my house wasn't protected by your average alarm system. Because of past threats, the U.S. Marshals had outfitted it with state-of-the-art surveillance, cameras in every room excluding the bathrooms, and a live monitoring station watched 24/7 by federal personnel. The moment she stepped inside, alerts were triggered. She moved through my home with practiced ease, snapping photos of everything from my books to the contents of my fridge. She rummaged through closets, examined the medicine cabinet, and even sat at my desk, flipping through documents. Finding nothing incriminating, she began rearranging objects to stage violations. The final insult? She went into my bedroom and placed a bright red violation form on my nightstand, listing over 20 infractions, including owning non-approved hangers and having too many legal books, which she claimed was a fire risk. She signed it dramatically and even took a selfie beside my bed. Back at the federal monitoring station, agents watched every move she made. They deployed units immediately, treating it as a potential security breach. By the time I got the urgent call from Marshal Davidson, she had already been inside for half an hour. I left court at once, informing my clerk of a security emergency at my residence. The drive home, though only 40 minutes, felt endless. As I raced back, I tried to process what had happened. Someone had brazenly violated not only my home but every reasonable expectation of privacy and legality. She had no idea whose home she was breaking into, or how thoroughly she was being watched. The quiet calm of my neighborhood shattered the moment I saw the fleet of federal vehicles lining my street. Marshals had already secured the area, and were waiting for me to provide a formal statement before proceeding. Inside my home, once a haven of peace, crime scene technicians were busy snapping photographs, lifting fingerprints, and carefully bagging the violation notice left behind. Everything Meredith Sinclair had touched was now evidence. Marshal Davidson showed me footage on a laptop right there in my driveway. Watching Meredith wander through my home like she belonged there ignited a deep, burning anger. Her audacity, her complete disregard for boundaries, legality, and basic respect was staggering. She twisted her role as HOA president into a tool for satisfying her own invasive curiosity and thirst for control. After I gave my statement, I immediately contacted District Attorney Patricia Williams, someone I'd collaborated with on many cases. As I recounted the events, her disbelief grew, especially when I mentioned the surveillance footage and federal involvement. She promised this wouldn't be brushed aside, not because I was a federal judge, but because such brazen abuse of authority couldn't be allowed to fester in any community. The actual arrest felt almost surreal. Meredith exited her house dressed in high-end workout attire, clearly expecting nothing more taxing than a Pilates class. Her demeanor shifted rapidly. Irritation gave way to confusion, then full-blown panic as Marshal Davidson read her rights. She insisted it was a misunderstanding, that she had jurisdiction as HOA president to inspect homes. But when they told her she was being charged with trespassing, breaking and entering, and impersonating a federal official, her confidence collapsed. She demanded to contact her husband, her attorney, even the mayor, anyone who might rescue her from what was happening. The officers remained professional, unbothered by her desperation. By evening, the news had caught wind of the story. Meredith's tear-streaked mugshot and the headline "Federal Judge's Home, Illegally Entered by HOA President," were featured across 3 stations. Video footage showed her rummaging through my private belongings. The fallout was immediate. Her preliminary hearing took place the next morning, held, ironically, in the very courthouse where I normally presided. A different judge, Judge Thompson, oversaw the matter. Known for his stern stance on abuse of authority, he set bail at $50,000 and issued a no-contact order barring Meredith from speaking to me or any Willowbrook Estates residents while the case progressed. That same evening, the HOA board convened without her. With Vice President James Morrison presiding, they voted unanimously to remove Meredith from her position. Several members personally apologized to me for the harassment and pledged immediate reforms, including mandatory homeowner consent for property inspections and the cancellation of all existing contractor access codes. The criminal case moved quickly. The evidence, including video and eyewitness testimony, left little room for argument. Her lawyer advised her to accept a plea. Meredith pled guilty to trespassing and abuse of authority. She was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 300 hours of community service, and fined $10,000. Federal charges for unlawfully entering a protected residence added another year of probation and an additional $15,000 fine. But the legal penalties were only part of it. I pursued civil action, suing her for invasion of privacy, emotional distress, and violation of federal protections. My attorney projected damages upward of $100,000, not counting legal costs. Her homeowner's insurance wouldn't cover criminal acts, leaving her personally responsible for every cent. Professionally, her life unraveled. She had been a realtor for Platinum Properties, one of the top brokerages in the region. Once her arrest became public, the firm terminated her immediately for damaging their reputation and violating their ethics standards. Her real estate license was suspended, pending a full review, a process unlikely to end in her favor. Socially, she became a pariah. Friends stopped taking her calls. Neighbors avoided her at the store. The network of control she'd built on intimidation and self-importance disintegrated. Other residents began sharing their own experiences of Meredith's overreach. None as extreme as mine, but troubling nonetheless. At her sentencing, Meredith stood in front of Judge Thompson, a shadow of the imperious woman she once was. Dressed plainly, her hair pulled back, she offered a weak apology that centered more on her own suffering than on the damage she caused. Judge Thompson didn't mince words. He reminded her and the courtroom of how sacred a person's home is, how much trust communities place in those who claim authority, and the danger of misusing that trust. This wasn't a simple lapse in judgment, he said, but a deliberate violation with serious implications. The final consequences were staggering. Between criminal fines, civil restitution, and court judgments, Meredith faced over $150,000 in financial obligations. Her real estate license was permanently revoked. She was barred for life from serving on any HOA board or holding any position of financial trust, and her federal conviction would follow her forever. As the bailiff led her from the courtroom, Meredith's mask finally cracked. Her expression collapsed into disbelief, her mouth opened as if to protest, but no words came. There was nothing left to say. The power she once wielded had been turned back on her, revealing not hidden violations, but the full cost of her own arrogance.